We're here today to stimulate your mind, to elevate your own creativity. And today's speaker will definitely do that and more.
Hey, Russ, have you ever wondered how to crawl out of the rut you're in at work? Wondered how to handle your kids? Wondered how to control your money better? That's what we're going to be talking about today. If you've ever wondered about any of these problems, and even if you haven't, you need to keep listening. You know why, Russ?
Yes, because today we have one of the most direct, honest, in-your-face guests ever. I've been following him for years, over 20 years. Larry Winget, the pit bull of personal development and the world's only irritational speaker.
Larry Winget will be with us live for the full hour. He'll answer our questions as well as yours, so please do call next on Russ on the Radio.
Larry, welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, you're great. Listen, we're going to jump right into this, if you don't mind. The famous quote, I'm pulling out some things from your past. The famous quote from General Patton and what TNT means to you.
Boy, you are going back, and you expect me to remember this stuff from way back.
Well,
TNT means today, not tomorrow. I get so tired of people waiting to take action so everything will be perfect. And General Patton said that a good idea implemented today is better than a perfect idea implemented tomorrow.
Oh, man, you do remember.
So many people who are stuck simply because they won't take action out of fear of failure, fear of reprimand, fear of people's judgment or criticism. I say to heck with it, just get started. Even if you're wrong, you'll find out quicker.
I just love that. And, that kind of just blows procrastinators right out of the water.
Well, I would hope so. I've spent a lot of years trying to blow just about everything that we've heard and we accept as traditional, motivational, inspirational wisdom. I try to blow all that out of the water.
Sounds like you're doing a good job to me.
I am.
I can believe that you remember way back then those statements. Like I said, I've been following you for years. As far as I'm concerned, you're the guy. I'm serious. Tell our audience, who is Larry Winget and who is your audience, Larry?
I've written 6 New York Times or Wall Street Journal bestsellers. You introduced me as the pit bull of personal development and the world's only irritational speaker. Those are 2 of my trademark titles. And pretty much what I'm known for is that style, very direct, in your face, telling the truth, cutting through the BS, challenging all that traditional business wisdom as all that motivational BS, blow smoke up your skirt, make you feel good about your stuff, self stuff, which I think has done more harm than good for sure. I'm the guy who had my own television show on A&E called Big Spender. I've shot 2 PBS specials, 2 CNBC specials. I'm a regular on Fox Business and Fox News, talking about the wussification of America, personal finance, parenting, you name it. And I've spoken to over 400 of the Fortune 500 companies, been on stages for nearly 25 years now.
It's just a shame you can't get anything done, Larry.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
There you go. It's because I'm lazy. I'm a procrastinator. That's why.
Hardly. Hey, let's talk about some of the things I brought up in the beginning in the intro. How do people get out of the rut they're in at work?
Well, they just get out. Really, people sit around and think, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? Do anything different. I mean anything different. I tell people all the time, brush your teeth with the left hand tomorrow if you've been brushing your teeth with the right hand. People say, will that really make a difference? I don't know. It might. Won't hurt. The trouble is we get stuck doing the same thing every day, always the same way. I say take a different route home when you're driving home. Think a little differently. Come in a different door. And while that sounds a little silly, you've got to break habits. We get so stuck in doing the same thing the same way every day that we end up living a life of paying bills until we die. And then we wonder why we're bored and we've never done very well. It's because we do the same thing the same way every single day. Change it up.
Next to me, between Alex and I have about 15 of your books. I've been, like I said, you irritate me. And I bang my head against the door or the wall. And then I change because of what you've said and been on TV. And
I appreciate that. I get a lot of feedback from people and a lot of people posting on my social media and writing me. One person wrote me just today and said, Larry, I want you to know I hate you. And because of that, I love you.
That's it. It's a love-hate relationship. Believe me, I know. Can I tell this quick story? I called your office and I said, can I get some questions? Does Larry have any questions? Larry, he doesn't need questions. I said, can I write some? You don't need to do that. I go, that's incredible. How can he talks every time on stage? No notes. He's on TV. He must know this stuff backwards and forwards. Tell us about results. Tell us.
Well, let me tell you why I don't have to do that. Is because my point of view is not based on a speech. It's not based on notes. It's not based on anything I have to practice or rehearse or to think about. My full point of view is based on my core values. My core values are reflected in everything that I say. So when I go on television and they ask me how I feel about making sure that everybody gets free college, I don't have to think about that. That goes back to my core values. When we talk here today, regardless of what you ask me, regardless of which area we go in, parenting or personal finance or any area of life or business, that always relates back to what is inside of me based on my clarity and the clarity of my core values and what my belief system is. We have way too many people who are leaders and considered thought leaders, which is a stupid term to begin with, and people who are given speeches who have to go to their notes to figure out what they believe, or they have to run the poll numbers to see if it's going to make anybody else happy. I don't care if it makes anybody else happy. I say what I say because that goes back to my core beliefs and my core values.
As far as I'm concerned, I've been around a lot of people. Alex, you have too.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anything.
I think you're just a shining example of be yourself, Larry.
Well, authenticity is something that I believe so few people have. And I will tell you this, I have people who absolutely hate me, and yet they still buy my stuff because they're just amazed by the fact that I am willing to say it. That's okay. You see, I believe that you build in this industry, or I don't care if you're dry cleaners, you will have people who will love you and you will have people who will hate you. But especially in the self-help and business development and the personal development area, you must be willing to have rabid haters if you're ever going to have rabid fans. And the only way for that to happen is for you to absolutely draw a line in the concrete and stand for something. My latest book was entitled Grow a Pair, and it's about knowing what you stand for, knowing what you believe in, and being willing to speak up about it. See, I've discovered that people don't listen to what you have to say. They don't even believe what you have to say. But they will always listen to see if you believe what you have to say. That's what we're looking for right now is authenticity.
Mm-hmm. And we're looking for heroes, too, people who can kind of show us this is an ethical, wonderful way to live.
It's incredible. And by the way, I have all of Larry's books right here. I think all of them. You've written so many. I'm lost in the shuffle here. But I have Larry's new book. I have lots of them. Lots of them. We're here with Larry Winget, the pit bull of personal development. I love Larry. Sorry, Larry. I just think you're I just think you're wonderful. So.
In a good way, Larry. In a good way. Larry, could you talk to us a little bit about the whole controlling your money, your personal finances thing?
You know, really, money is one of the simplest things around. I'm always amazed that people get so confused by it. I show a few years ago, a couple of them for CNBC called The Millionaire Inside, and I was watching the commercials for it, and they said, on this show will be 4 of the world's leading money gurus. And then they said my name, and I'm going, well, how can that be? I was interviewed later about how I became this money guru, and I said, I'm really not sure. Pretty much all I've got is spend less money than you earn. But since 42% of Americans don't do that, I'm a guru. It's really very, very simple. Money is the reward that you get in exchange for the value you bring. That's where it starts. Past that, you need to understand that you can't spend more money than you earn, and you can't borrow your way out of debt, and that planning is an absolute necessity if you're ever going to have anything. To wake up and say, oh my goodness, my kids are seniors in high school, I better figure out something on how to send them to college. Or to end up at 65 and say, well, what do you know, I haven't saved a dime. If you do either one of those things, you're an idiot. If you spend more money than you make, you're an idiot. And so people need to understand the basics of fiscal responsibility, and sadly, they don't. And it always amazes me on top of that we expect our government to do something we don't do. We get upset when the government has a deficit, when they have the kind of debt that they do. Well, they're not going to be any better than we are. The average American owes too much money and certainly has too much debt. Pretty simple principles.
Mm-hmm. Americans too, unfortunately, and we all seem to live the same lifestyle. Let me ask you a quick question. I know you were on one of the news shows recently, and you were discussing global debt crisis. Your debit card won't work, hypothetically. The banks are closed. What was your advice to people?
Well, my advice, and this was in regards to Greece, is when they were going through their problems, that they were at the ATMs. The most they could get out was $60. And the fact that the banks were closed and they didn't have access to cash. Now, see, that whole idea just astounds me, that we have people who are walking around with no cash and they are living on a piece of plastic, hoping that technology will always be there for them. I don't trust a technology enough to say it's always going to be there. I believe that it's just a solid principle that you should always have access to some cash. I was standing behind a lady the other day in the airport, and she was paying for an 89-cent candy bar with her credit card, and her credit card wouldn't go through. And she's really upset, and she turns to me and says, well, and believe me, this woman didn't need this candy bar. She turns to me and says, well, now what am I supposed to do? And I said, well, why don't you do without the credit card? And why did you come to the airport to make a trip and not have $1 in your pocket? Not $1? But see, that's how people think. Mm-hmm. So I believe that every American needs a pretty good stash of cash. That's what I tell folks. Get yourself a stash of cash. Always, and it's one of the principles of my book, You're Broke Because You Want to Be, it's called Tuck a Benjamin, which means you need a $100 bill stuck somewhere in your wallet deep, so in case of an emergency, you at least have access to $100.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good to me. And also, you should have a candy bar on you, too.
If you need a little sugar fix, that's a good idea.
Oh, this is incredible. Straightforward. This is great. I'm going to do the word association thing because I know you do this so well, and I've seen you do it. So talk about work.
Work is something that more people need to do a whole lot more of. We've gotten to this place in society where work has become the most caustic, ugly, foul, obscene, nasty four-letter word in our language. If I get pushed back on anything, it's because I tell people to go to work. Work means breaking a sweat, either physically or mentally, every single day. And work is what we do to exchange it for compensation, which is money, which allows us to live the kind of life we want.
Oh, man, how direct can you get?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go out and buy more anyway. And everyone listening, even after the podcast comes out, you should be going to Amazon right now and buying every one of these books. And I'm not kidding. It'll change you.
Yeah, and I was looking at your book, Grow a Pair, the brand new one that's out right now.
We have it right there.
Yeah, we do. We're looking at it. And there's a chapter in there that I really liked. I'd love for you to talk about. It's How to Be a Better Citizen.
Well, the first thing people can do to be a better citizen is to vote. When you consider that only about 40% of the people who are eligible to vote bother, and only 60% of those who even could register to vote bother to register. When you look at the low participation numbers that we have, when you hear that people say voting is the lesser of two evils, well, yeah, but eventually you end up with somebody who's less evil than the other person. And people who say voting doesn't matter, or they just drive me nuts. It's the only way that we get to participate at a national level in the conversation that's going on and to have any impact on what's going on in our society. So voting is the first thing people can do to be a better citizen. The other thing is that we need to speak up for what's right. We have too many people who are sheeple, who would just follow along, believing anything. And the things that I see people just letting slide by absolutely bothers me. When we see wrong, we need to speak up. I commented yesterday and got in this huge online argument because this best-selling author had his 12 tips and mind tricks, he called them, on how to get ahead in life. And number 6 was, if you find yourself in a lie, add a lot of detail to make the lie more believable.
Huh.
You see, I have big issues with that. We have people who are encouraging folks to lie. This guy had 35,000 likes with people saying, this is a wonderful article. And I had to step in and say, this is horrible. That we are telling people it's okay to, first of all, play mind tricks to get ahead. There are no tricks to getting ahead. And that we would encourage people to lie in order to get ahead and then tell them how to do it. And yet too many people read that and said, ooh, I wish he hadn't said that you should lie, but nobody spoke up. And so we've got too many people just being quiet about things that are absolutely wrong that are going on. And we need to speak up about what's going on that absolutely goes against, again, go back to what I said, your core values of honesty and integrity and doing the right thing.
And I love that, and I'm so glad that you're fighting for those rights and for the people to be that way. Thank you, Larry.
Oh, this is great. Larry, you have about a minute before the hard break here. Tell us about, well, there's that word things again, plan for failure. You can tell I'm an old Larry Winget fan.
I can.
Yes.
I can tell you the one thing that I can make sure that you can be guaranteed of, and that is failure. No matter what you start out to do, you will fail. We will always experience failure. We spend a lot of time and energy preparing people to be successful and very little preparing people to fail. And yet failure is what we will experience more than any other thing in our lifetime. We need to help our children through failure, show them how to fail with dignity, how to win with honor and humility. But we're not doing that. Instead, we believe that the world will always be rainbows and roses, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, and also failure is just another way to learn. I mean, how do we grow and how do we learn if we're not failing every now and then?
I believe we always learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. I have failed a lot and always learned from every single time that I failed. And again, we're not preparing kids by not allowing them to fail.
Larry Winget is with us, the pit bull of personal development. And Larry, you know I'm an old-timer. Customer service and the red lollipop.
Yeah, you really are. You're going way back in my career. I haven't told the story of the red sucker in a long time.
Red sucker, listen. That's right.
I am a big believer in serving the customer well. I remember an old tape that I had many, many years ago by Earl Nightingale where he said something I consider to be truly profound. He said, all of the money you're ever going to have is currently in the hands of someone else. And in business, that someone else is the customer. I never forgot that line. And so if we're going to get the customer to share their money with us, then we have to provide profound value and we have to serve them well. My story of customer service in the Red Sucker has to do with the fact that I am a drive-in bank kind of guy. I always go to the drive-in bank. It's just I hate going inside and messing with people and doing all that stuff. I like ATMs and drive-ins. So I pulled in, and I'd been to this drive-in bank hundreds and hundreds of times. I typically had my dogs with me, and when you pull up there, the little drawer would always come out because I like the one closest to the building. And in the drawer would be a dog bone for my dog and a lollipop. In Oklahoma, we called them suckers. And I pull in there one day, there was my dog, Elvis, and there I was, and the drawer had a dog biscuit and a sucker in it, and I gave Elvis the dog biscuit, and I looked at the sucker, and I said, this is a lime green sucker. Nobody eats lime green suckers. She said, what kind of sucker do you want? I said, a red one. So the drawer goes back in, comes back out, it's got a red sucker, now I'm a happy guy. I go back about a week later, it's right at 6 o'clock. They are just closing, but I can still see them all inside. And if you've ever been to a drive-in bank, you know you can still see all those people in there. And so I pull up, and they shake their head and wave at me, and I wave back, and I realize this isn't going to work. So I pull around to the front of the bank, and in a typical kind of a small bank, you walk in this little foyer where the ATM is, and then there are the front doors, and the front doors are all locked up, but we can still all see each other in there. I'm at the ATM. I'm doing my transaction at the ATM, and the mail slot in the front door opens. A little hand comes through the mail slot holding a red sucker.
Oh.
And I will never change banks because of that. My wife and I, forever, we've always had separate bank accounts. She even banks at a different bank than I do. And she asked me one day what kind of rates I was getting at my bank. I said, I'm not sure my bank has rates. My bank has red suckers.
This is such a great story.
Yeah. Okay, Larry, just one more thing I wanted to talk about because I mentioned it in the beginning, and I know that you say if you're going to do it, you'd better do it, right? So I said I was going to talk about this with you, and it's how to control out-of-control kids.
I get that question a lot. I did write a best-selling book called Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. That is the most important book that I've ever written. My other books are good. All my books are fine. They're all good. But this is an important book because it addresses what our real problem is, and that's lousy parenting in America. I can trace everything from bad customer service to the housing crisis back to the fact that parents aren't teaching their kids how to behave, how to be responsible, how to spend their money and save their money and do the right thing and treat people with respect. So in terms of out-of-control children, in fact, I did a call-in program not long ago where a woman called in and she said, I have a 17-year-old that is out of control. What should I do? I said, well, let's get real clear. Your 17-year-old who is out of control was not in control at 17 months old. You've never been in control. Getting in control of your children starts very, very early. The problem is right now is that we have a society that believes that the family is a democracy. The family is not a democracy. Children don't get a say. They don't get an equal vote. Families are absolute monarchies, and we need parents to step up and be in charge of their families and set limitations and communicate expectations and impose discipline. I didn't say punishment. I'm saying discipline. Because everything has a discipline about it. The military, the church, everything has disciplines, but that has to be communicated in advance. And when we do that, we start to create responsible adults. The sad thing is that we think we're raising kids. We're not raising kids. We are creating adults. And we need parents who are creating responsible, productive adults.
That's great. And I have read psychological studies where they say that children actually want boundaries. They want rules, and they feel safer when there are.
You know, there was many years ago, back when we had recess, there was a study done in an elementary school where they took down the fences around the schoolyard. And when they took down the fences, the kids played right against the buildings. And when you put the fences back up, they play out on the edge. We need kids who are willing to play on the edge, yet still know that there are boundaries out there. The sad thing is that we don't tell people, we don't teach our kids, we don't show them what boundaries there are, impose the consequences of it going past the boundaries, and that's really a shame. We're doing our kids a disservice. When everybody gets a trophy, when we reward everything that's done, when we never let them experience failure like we talked about in the previous segment, we've really done our children and eventually our society a true disservice.
Do you think that there's more bullying now than there used to be, or?
No, I don't. In fact, boy, anything will light up your phones, it ought to be this one. I'm actually pro-bully. See, I don't believe that you can have a bully unless you have a victim. And we can never legislate bullying out of society. There are bullies in countries. Iran's a bully. We've got bullies in the presidential race right now. We have bullies in the workplace. We have businesses bullying other businesses. There will always be bullying. However, we can teach our children, and we personally can stop being victims. I can show you 87-year-old grandmothers who would never get pushed around. You know those kind of people. I can show you little bitty kids who are rolling themselves around in wheelchairs, and they don't get bullied. It's because they know how to carry themselves. They act with confidence. And so I don't believe you can even have a bully if you don't have a victim. You can't legislate bullies, but you can teach people how to stop being a victim.
That is so powerful, isn't it? I mean, that's the most powerful.
I mean, what I'm thinking is teaching your children personal power and self-protection. You know, I like that angle.
And it's not just about protecting yourself physically. It's about protecting yourselves emotionally. When we have kids right now who are committing suicide because somebody said something tacky about them on social media, that's poor training of a child that we don't teach them. We grew up, you and I grew up, hearing sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt me. Well,
True.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So some idiot says something that hurts your feelings, and you're going to take it to the point that you're willing to kill yourself over it. that you're going to be offended about it. We have a whole society that's offended constantly. I wrote a little meme on my Facebook page 10 days ago that says when you find yourself offended, you're a weak person. Only the weak are constantly offended by things that have nothing to do with them. And so when you're offended about something, is it or is it you? That post has been shared 88,000 times on Facebook. It's been shared that much. That's a lot of shares. It's got 10 million eyes that have been on it. Mm-hmm. And I also have never gotten so much hate mail about something in my life or been called more names. And what I try to remind people of is if you Google the word offended, the definition is to become resentful or annoyed, typically as the result of a perceived insult. A perceived insult. We have people that are taking their own lives. We have people who are suing other folks, all because of a perceived insult? Seriously? Words upset us that much? Name-calling upsets us that much? That's when you have a victim mentality. When you have put yourself, your ego, your self-esteem is so fragile that you have opened up your happiness and your emotions to the words of someone else. We need to tell people to toughen up. That's what the book Grow Up Here is about.
Yeah, and it's all about how you perceive what is said or done to you. It's our perspective that determines how we feel about things.
You're terrific. I can't say it enough. Tell us about selling. One word.
You know, selling is something we all have to get good at if we're going to be successful. Every single day we sell, and people go, no, I'm not selling. Selling is not about a product, getting me to have a product and talking you into spending money on it. I'm selling right now. I'm selling people on my ideas and my opinions. We all sell. We sell ourselves into a raise. We sell ourselves to our customers, to our boss, to our coworkers, that we are of value to them. And selling is simply the exchange of value. You have money, you have some kind of a reward, and I have to give you enough value that you are willing to trade that with me. And so everybody at some point in their life needs to read a good selling book, regardless of whether that's their chosen profession or not, because you have to get good at convincing others to accept you, your ideas, your opinions, your thoughts, your work, or your product.
Wow. All in a couple paragraphs. Tell us about your famous selling point about ask. I know I'm an old guy again, but ask. That goes way back. It goes way back.
I got a good memory.
I know. It's great. I love it.
I look at the number of books that have been written about selling. I got fascinated with the Secrets of Success thing a few years ago, and I looked up the number of books, and I've read 4,500 books in the last 28 years. I don't know, maybe people have read as many books as I have, but
that's a lot.
And I started looking up the Secrets of Success and the number of books written about that, and I've found 600 books that talk about the secrets of selling. And after reading that many books on selling, and I've written a couple on that, it really comes down to one word, ask. And people always say, well, it's harder than that. No, it isn't. Just ask. Ask. We need to become master askers. And when you ask, people say it's more complicated, Larry, because when you ask, somebody might say no. Well, ask them again. And then they say, well, what if they say no? Well, ask them again. Well, what if they say no? Ask them again. And if they say no again, go ask somebody else. None of this stuff is that hard. But you never know until you ask. And here's the deal about asking people to buy. Nobody ever died from doing it. Mm-hmm. Really, there's no downside. Mm-hmm. Nobody died from doing it. In fact, nobody died from doing any of the stuff that I'm talking about. Let me see. Be responsible, actually raise your kids, work hard, provide value, do the right thing, live a life of honesty, integrity. You don't die for that. None of this stuff is that hard, and there's no downside to it.
This is such great stuff. Larry, we have a call. Robin calling from North Carolina.
A brave person.
Very much so. Robin, you're on Russ on the Radio.
Hi. How is everybody?
Great. How are you?
Great. I'm calling because I'm worried that we're carrying this political correctness way too far. And how is that going to influence our children?
You know, one of the things that I said in the book, Robin, Grow Up Here, is that the most castrating effect we've had on our society in the last 50 years is political correctness. We have taken it too far. We have so many people so guarded with their words that we can't even express ourselves any longer. And that's a shame. And it will affect our children.
We believe that.
That's a great question, and it's so topical.
Hey, Larry, would you be willing to talk about a few of the 10 things that will never fail you?
I'd be willing to talk about whatever you ask me about.
Well, you're a sweetheart.
Well, the 10 things that will never fail you, they're really so simple. They're principles and core values. And my number one is honesty. Now, I got to this by something I talk about in the book, Grow Up Here, but if I walk up to people and say, give me 5 things that you'll never compromise on, I mean, you'll never budge on. Now, most people, when I ask them that, look at me like a dog looking at a ceiling fan. They have no idea what they really will never compromise on, core values that they'll never, ever give up on no matter what. But I have 10. Mine are honesty, integrity, hard work, being nice, being excellent at what you do, exceeding expectations, spending less than you earn. We've talked about that. Saving as much as you possibly can. You'll never go wrong by saving. Being charitable with your time and your talents and your money. And then you got to keep your sense of humor. Those 10 things will never fail you.
That's lovely. And I believe that I found those on your website, which is Larry Winget, WINGET.com. You also have videos people can watch and blogs and all kinds of stuff, right?
You know, I'm everywhere. LarryWinget.com, and you can see videos, all my television appearances on there, clips from my speeches and my television shows. You can get a lot of free stuff, like this card that you're talking about with the 10 things. I also have ways to be a better person and ways to raise better kids. All those kind of little tips are on there, a budgeting sheet if you have financial issues. And you can get a lot of free stuff on there, find out everything I've done, watch me, order my books. You can get a whole library of my books. There's a lot of stuff on my website.
What about your comic book? Tell us about that.
My very first bestseller was Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. It was the first book that I sold to a publisher, and I was very fortunate that the very first week it was out, it went to number 1 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list.
We have it here, by the way.
Well, there you go. And that was my first book, and still probably overall the bestseller, simply because that's like the best title that was ever written. Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life.
It's definitely eye-catching.
I write great titles. But the comic book company, they call themselves graphic novels these days and graphic artistry. They're not comics anymore. They chose my book, Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life, to be the first one that they wanted to turn into this format, because they see what I do as sort of bigger than life, and that I have sort of an appeal that is easy to convey through comic book images. And besides that, it made me a superhero in the book, and I want to be a superhero.
For sure.
You are a superhero, according to Russ on the radio.
You know, I appreciate you saying that. Nobody's made more dumb errors in life and more mistakes than I have. I am certainly no example that people will want to follow. I wrote People Are Idiots and I Can Prove It, one of my bestsellers, and there's a chapter in there called Larry Winget, Idiot Extraordinaire. I've done every dumb thing that anybody can do, personally, financially, in my business, in my marriage, as a parent. I mean, I've been an idiot. I just tried to learn along the way. And that's what I tell people. No matter how stupid you've been, you should learn from those mistakes. Get out there, gather some new information, read some books, listen to people who resonate with you, who will make you act differently in the future. And anybody can be a profound success if they go back to, like I said, these 10 things that will never fail you. Honesty, integrity, doing the right thing, treating people well, being nice to folks.
That's awesome stuff. I'm going to bring you back again, Larry.
Happy to do it anytime. Just let us know.
Well, here, I'm going to bring you back. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. 3-step action plan. Bring you back in your mind about the 3-step action plan. You remember that? How is it today?
I'm ready.
Go ahead. Go for it.
All right. The 3-step action plan. All it takes to be successful is 3 sheets of paper. On the first one, write down where you are in every area of your life. What do your finances look like, your relationships, your career, everything. How does your life look right now? On the second sheet, write down how you'd like for your life to look in all the same areas. So the first sheet, this is where I am. Second sheet, this is how I'd like for it to be. On the third sheet, I want you to write down what you're going to give up to get from where you are to where you want to be. I'm absolutely confident that I'm the only guy in the personal development industry who says success comes from sacrifice. We have too many motivational bozos out there saying you can have it all, and that's a lie. You can't. You're going to have to choose.
Oh.
You don't get success. You give up what's keeping you from being successful.
What an ending. Larry Winget, thank you. You are always welcome here on Russ on the Radio. Please come back.
Thank you
all. I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
You're listening to Independent Talk 1100 KFNX. Email russontheradio@gmail.com. Today, it was our time for a swift kick in the pants from Larry Winget, the pit bull of personal development. My personal favorite. I don't care, I'm saying it.